everyone, happy Halloween. Hope everyone is having a safe and fun evening. I wanted to pop in with a remarkably created paper crafting tip for you. And I wanted to show you a really quick and easy way to add just a little bit of visual interest to the background of a card front when you're working on it, a gift tag. You can even use this technique on scrapbook pages, photo mats, and things like that. So these are not mounted yet because I wanted to show you that you have options. So when you look at this card, can you see the lines here on the back? In this case, I mounted the elements on the front with the lines recessed. If you flip it over, you could see that I could have chosen the raised side. So just those little diagonal lines add a little bit to the background without having to do any stamping, without having to add any designer paper or any extra cutting or anything like that. For this card here, I did choose the raised side, and it's just a little extra visual element right here in the middle of the card. And it draws your eye to both sets of elements because of the way that they're divided. So we can use elements like this to go ahead and draw our eye to them. In this case, I created a box to frame our little deer and our little snowflake in a tiny little piece of designer paper. And again, in this case, the images are recessed. I could have chosen to use the raised side. And then here in this one, sometimes there's elements we want to use, and I don't know about you guys, but when I'm making a card, sometimes when I put something on the card, I feel like it's just hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Like, okay, that's kind of really, really cute, but if I move it lower, it doesn't make sense. If I move it higher, it doesn't make sense. So adding these little visual lines gave this frame a place to rest and brought those three wise men up just a little bit higher, and it just kind of finishes the card off just a little bit. Another example for you here, I have a gift tag, and it's a cute gift tag like it is, but sometimes a couple of things happen when we're stamping, at least in my craft studio. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I've stamped too high, and then I've got this big empty space. It wasn't intentional, but it happens. And I don't want to start over again. I can be a very lazy crafter sometimes, and I don't want to start over. Sometimes I intentionally go a little high and I still have that little space, and it was like, oh, that's not too much. So let's start working on how we're getting those score lines. Stampin' Up's trimmer is amazing. Now, a trimmer, some people would say a trimmer is a trimmer is a trimmer. And I might agree with it, but the one thing that really, really, really sets this trimmer apart is the scoring blade. I've never seen such deep scores on any scoring tool out there, and I've been crafting as, you know, a Stampin' Up demonstrator for 26 years almost, and I've never seen a blade like this. I absolutely love it. In addition, I love that we have all of the small score marks across the top, across the middle, across the bottom, and I have this long arm that I can choose to extend out. And I love that I have 1.5 inches going the other direction as well. Really makes this technique that I'm showing you guys that much easier. The other thing that's nice is that the trimmer and the cutter stay in the blade at all times. And I can just simply move the cutting blade up out of the way. I don't have to take time to pop things out and put them back in. Remember, I told you that I've been known to be a very lazy crafter. So having both in there at all times totally makes this girl happy. So I'm just gonna lay that in there, and I'm just gonna press and slide. Now I'm gonna flip this one over just because I wanna show you just something a little different. And let's look at it, and I have space for one more. So in addition to all the ways that I showed you where you can have them raised up and down, you can also alter them. And now I have a little bit more visual interest on that big empty spot that was on that tag. And I'm just gonna put a little bit of adhesive on it. We'll finish it all up later, but I just wanted to kind of give you that finished look. And so now I have a really nice, simple, easy tag. But again, just taking advantage of that empty space that was there. So let's just pull in a few more, just give you some of those ideas. So the other thing is if you measure out and you're careful, now I don't know how well I'm gonna do here on screen with you guys, but we're gonna try. You can actually by playing around just a little bit, create a whole box. And again, this scoring tool, guys, is so darn cool. Now remember, if you want, okay, I'll tell you in just a second. Let me just finish this little corner. It's gonna bug me otherwise. So I've got that raised element here. Now my stitch lines are on the top. Had I wanted those raised lines, I would have had to do it upside down. So if this is the top of your card and you want it raised, then you need to flip it over, okay? If this is the top of your card and you want an indent, leave that top side up if that makes sense. Just a couple of others. So I've got, and it doesn't matter how wide you do them. Some of mine I was doing 1/2 inch. That's another reason why I love this over here. So I've got the raised lines. And now I can go ahead and add my element to it. And I've just got those nice little lines right behind it. A trick, and I'm just gonna go ahead. Do I have a piece handy that will show up for you? Yes, I have this piece here. So when I was doing the diagonals, just to give you a little tip on the diagonals, I start with the point here about how wide I want it. And I make sure that this point also is on a number, if that makes sense. It's just kind of a little cheat for me. It makes it easy. And then I can just slide that point along numbers. And that gives me the diagonals that I want in equal measurements across the card. So what I did again is I just start with this point up on a number and make sure that this is also on a line. And then I can just move that across, if that makes sense, following the numbers. So you can have a whole lot of fun. Don't forget that you can also visually do your designer papers. It won't show up as visually, but when people run their finger over it, or it will, especially with our foilings, it will break up the pattern. So here in this case, you can see how it's definitely broken up the pattern, even on the other side. So it can visually break up the pattern just a little bit. And then when you go to lay your elements on it, you can see again, it's just that little extra bit of oomph, I guess, that little extra bit of wow, that little bit that just takes it the next level without hours and hours of work, you know, having to dig out the dies or cut paper or anything like that. And it really does add value. I'm a big believer in adding value to purchases and finding as many ways as possible to get my money out of the things that I purchase with that money, because we all work hard for it, right? So let me just, as a quick review again, just showcase the projects that I did in the beginning for you. So we created this little tag here, and it's indented, raised, indented, just with the lines, and all of the lines were created with the scoring. For our 3 little wise men, we've got them all raised, and they're all spaced 1/4 inch apart. We'll finish them up with some fun greetings. To create just some score lines and framing around our little deer, these I chose to go indented because I wanted everything kind of more to pop, if that makes sense. And I just did equal score lines of 1 inch on either side, 1 inch here and 1 inch here. So there are 4 equal score marks going around the card, if that makes sense. And then just used a scrap of paper in the center. For our happy card here, there's 3 lines in the middle of the card. And by putting the 3 lines here, when you're actually looking at it in person, it draws your eye actually to both elements. It's kind of a really fascinating concept, the way that it works. And then this was the one that I added just a few diagonals behind it. And now I just need to add some greetings, and I've got some fun happy cards. So make sure that if you have a holiday list for Christmas, as a crafter, that the Stampin' Trimmer is on it. It is definitely worth finding under your Christmas tree this year. And if you have the Stampin' Trimmer and you love it, give it a little love in the comments below. Just give a shout out about what you love about the trimmer. And thanks for joining me a little bit on a Saturday night, guys. Happy Halloween.